All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the stream. Hope everybody is doing well tonight. We are going to pick up where we left off, of course, last night, and we are going to continue with our asset import pipeline. And you can see here I've done a little bit of stuff off camera, but we're going to go over that. And we're going to go over a small change that we need to make regarding this to-do here. So before I get into that, I do want to take just a quick second to thank the supporters of the channel, beginning with our elite partner, Javier Alazaran, who's the highest tier of subscription over on Patreon, followed by our partners, Gerbolis Inc. and Matt Osgard. That's the next tier there, followed by our supporters, who you see listed here on the screen. They are a combination of the other tiers of support over on YouTube memberships, Patreon, as well as Twitch subscriptions. So thank you all very much for your support. It is greatly appreciated and helps me offset the cost of running this project, right? So things like hosting fees, software licenses, eventually assets, things of that nature, paying artists, for example. All of that support definitely will be rolled back into the channel, and it is greatly appreciated. And I would be remiss if I did not mention a big thank you to all of you who are joining me live here, either on the YouTube side or on the Twitch side, or if you're catching the VOD after the fact. Without you guys, this project and thus this channel would not exist. So thank you all for being here. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you following along with me here. Okay, so what are we looking at here? We are continuing, like I said, with our sort of import utility, as it were. And we've written a couple of importers. We kind of handled some of that on the last stream, and I've done a little bit of work off stream, and we'll kind of go over that. And I came to a couple of realizations while I was doing those things. So one of those realizations is imports don't really need to return the asset or pointers to the asset anymore. Really what we should be doing is just writing them to disk and then picking up that change after the fact in the engine, whether that's happening while the engine's running, or whether that is happening after, or I should say before the engine is running, right? So if we do it like a pre-build or a pre-run process, something like that, we can run this process at any time and perform imports, right? And so it doesn't really make any sense, given the new way that we're handling imports, to return a pointer to the asset. The reason we did that initially was because we could then use that to load directly into the engine, right? But now what we're doing is we've kind of separated the import process from the engine, and the engine's only going to be responsible for actually loading the files in the format, or the assets in the format that the engine expects, right? The engine-specific formats. And so by separating those two things, we no longer necessarily need to return a pointer to the asset because we're not going to use it for anything. We are simply going to write that to disk, and then it's up to the engine to go ahead and pick that up. So that is basically one of the changes that we're going to be making tonight. M. Fatah, thank you so much for the Prime sub. I really appreciate that. I appreciate that support. Thank you very much. That means a lot to me, and it definitely helps. So thank you very much for that. And welcome. All right. So what I have here is, well, actually, I suppose I should probably break off for a second and actually talk about what I've done offline first. When it comes to the K asset importers, right? So the first thing that you may or may not notice is we have this static mesh importer here, but now we also have a material OBJ importer here. And previously, this was something that we had sort of looped in or grouped in with the OBJ importer. So anytime you import an OBJ, there can be one or more MTL or material library files that are associated with that. And previously, those were kind of just all rolled into the OBJ. now that has actually been separated out to a separate importer. And so we can actually just import MTLs if we want. We can import OBJs if we want. And we can say, do them separately or together. And we're actually going to set up the importer itself, or the main sort of importer that uses all of these guys, to be able to configure that. So, we've gone ahead and separated that out, which is a good thing. We also got, I think, all of the rest of these building. So I think that is all solved, right? So all of this stuff builds, with the exception of this new thing that we have here, which I'll explain in a second. The other thing that we did was I moved all of these serializers for the import types over here. So the FNT file for bitmap format, or bitmap fonts, the object material, or the MTL serializer, and the object serializer itself, or the OBJ serializer. All of these serializers, since they are specific to file formats that we're importing, I've moved them from the plugin utils over here to Kohi tools, where they actually belong, right? So now it's been completely externalized from the engine, and we no longer need those things as part of plugin utils. And in fact, we can actually remove some of those things. Let's see, we have, I don't know, let's see, we've done STB image and STB image write for the export, but I don't believe we've actually copied over these things, right? So the all of these, so the Vorbis and the mini MP3, these are for audio, right? So we should probably actually, go ahead and grab these. I'm going to actually grab the whole thing and paste them here. And let's see, we'll go ahead and overwrite that one. And we'll go ahead and do this. Let's see, I guess I need to do rename. Let's see, overwrite, yes. Okay. Let's see, so that should have handled that. And I believe, in terms of vendor stuff, that actually completely eliminates all of the vendor libraries that would have been needed for the UI standard library. So we can actually remove that folder as well. Okay, so now all this stuff is moved over. Now we should be able to finish up our importers. I don't know that I've done the audio one, come to think of it. Let's see. Do we have... let's see. So binary audio serializer. Do we actually have... That is in an external... That is external, so that's probably in the runtime. Let me look at that real quick. Or no, I guess that would be in the core. Let's see. So we have, it's just called audio serializer, right? So we actually, I guess we haven't fixed this one yet, so that's fine. So we can go ahead and just rename that real quick. And you know what? We'll actually come back to this file and fix it in a minute. Let me see. Let me catch up on comments. Hey, great work as always. I really appreciate that. Thank you. What's the best way to support you? So I would say probably the best is either through Kofi or Kofi. I don't know how do you pronounce that. Either that or Patreon is probably the best way. YouTube memberships and Twitch take a decent cut from that. So, yeah, those would be probably the best ways. There's also, I think I have a tip page set up, but I don't know. I've never actually used it. So I don't know if it works or not, to be completely honest. But yeah, if you're interested, those would probably be the places to do it. And thank you for asking, and I really appreciate the thought, by the way. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. It helps a lot. Chill Crunch, how's it going? Hello. Welcome. I hope you're doing well. Okay, so I think the thing that I want to tackle first is kind of this to-do that we had in here where imports don't really need to return the asset anymore, because this is actually something that I thought of offline that really kind of makes a lot of sense, right? So what we're doing is at all of these different import API points, we are returning a pointer to a new asset, right? Which is, it's fine with the sort of old school way of doing that. It's kind of the legacy way of doing it. But let's see. YouTube is actually bleating at me that I don't have enough bandwidth or something. Is the stream coming across smoothly for you guys on Twitch and on YouTube? I'm getting like notifications that it's unstable. I don't know if it's just that or if it's like my internet being foobar. Diamond, good to see you. How are you? Welcome. Twitch is fine? Okay. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Maybe it's sometimes the UI just kind of bleats about it, and that's not really an issue, but it's like popping up this thing that says, hey, we're not receiving enough video information. It says actually, that's a really weird thing. It says not receiving enough video to maintain a smooth experience. Not receiving enough video is kind of a weird way of putting it, but anyway. Okay, it's good. All right, I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to eliminate the output asset. And I think that's going to actually simplify a lot of things for us. So, yeah, like we don't need K asset types, for example. We do, however, we are going to need kname to get kname, but that's fine. Okay, so what we're looking at here, and this is something else I should probably discuss. Let me actually kill this buffer for a second. So,
new donation from Refactor.
Let me see. Where did that... I appreciate the donation. However, I did not see the actual notification pop up as to how much it was. So I'm going to say thank you very much for the donation. I did not see the pop-up, though. I heard it come through, but I don't know how much it was. But thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that. That means a lot to me. I really appreciate that a lot. It's not much. You deserve more. Keep up the good work. I really appreciate that. Thank you. You're at a solid 6K bitrate and steady at 60 FPS on Twitch. All right, awesome. Highly appreciated salute from Egypt. Wow, that's pretty cool. I don't think I've talked to anybody from Egypt before, so that's really neat. Well, welcome, and I really appreciate the support. Thank you very much. Maget's up. How's it going? Good to see you. I don't know how to... Is it Flick QT? I might be pronouncing that wrong, but thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. Also, old Mapchel? Yeah, Mapchel. Sorry if I butchered your name. I'm really bad at pronouncing things sometimes, but thank you for the follow. Magetz, how are you? That's it? Okay. All right. I did get it. All right, cool. Sometimes I butcher it really badly, right? Okay, so the way that a lot of these importers work, right, is since we are sort of writing to an output asset, we just sort of wrote all of the data that we needed to that, and then we come down here and we serialize it to be written to disk later. So we're going to be moving away from that, and what we're going to do is we're going to set up a temporary asset instead. And so instead of having an out asset, which we no longer really need, we do need a temporary asset rather. So I'm going to do out, or I guess I'll do k asset material out asset. And I'm going to temporarily set it to that so I can rename it. And I'm just going to say asset. Right, and what we're going to do is we are going to set this to just be created on the stack instead. And then we'll do, I guess probably a find and replace might be the quickest way to actually handle all of these errors. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So we want %s. We're going to look for assets with an arrow, and we're going to replace that with asset and a dot globally. All right, so that should take care of a lot of it. Let's see. This is also static mesh obj. Oh, okay. So we actually do have a little bit of logic that we can remove from here as well. I thought I already did this, but maybe not. Didn't I actually already do this? I could have swore I already did this. Let me check something real quick. Did I do it in the wrong place? I might have. No, it's here. Okay. I guess I just didn't finish kind of what I was working on offline. All right. So the way that this obj import is now going to work, instead of being sort of paired with the MTL file, we are just going to handle the obj import. However, we are going to output a list of the material file names, right? So the MTL file names. We're going to take a pointer to hold the count, and then I know this is triple pointer, right? But when you break it down, it's not really that complicated. And so this is going to be a list of file names. So what we're really talking about here, and we don't use triple pointers often, but this is a good time to bring it up, right? Is a string is represented by a character array, right? So that's one. And then we have an array of character arrays, right? Or an array of strings. So that's two. And then this is a pointer to that, right? So this is a pointer to a block of memory that is going to hold an array of character strings, right? And the reason we do that is because we don't know until we actually process this file how many of those things we're going to have. And so we don't know how much memory to actually allocate. And so what we do is we parse the file, figure out how many material or MTL files we need, and then that becomes the out material file count. And so we set the value pointed to by that, and then we go ahead and we allocate the array. So let's see. This is, let me, geometry count. Oh, did I do the wrong kind of, this should be k asset static mesh. I did material there and it should have been static mesh. Okay, so all of this stuff should be good, with the exception of serialization, right? So static mesh serialize takes I believe, a constant pointer to the asset, right? So we just need to provide the address of that now, and it's just called asset, not out asset. However, I believe that is actually scoped. It is. So we're going to do that here. We're going to move that up, promote that in scope. And then that will give us, I think, why is this still complaining? Undeclared. Didn't we move it up? Oh, it's obj asset. That's not the one I want to promote. I want to move this one up. There we go. Okay, so we go ahead and we serialize that. And then we had this to store the name of the material file if there's one, so it can be loaded in a separate step. This is no longer the way that we're going to handle it, because the obj format actually specifies that you can have more than one reference to an MTL file. And so I didn't realize that when I wrote this. And so we're going to actually fix that sort of bug, if you will. And we're going to support multiples of them, right? So we no longer have the material file name here. That doesn't exist anymore. And we're not going to worry about, deserializing any of this stuff here. That's all taken care of externally for us. So what we're going to do is actually we're going to select this whole block and nuke it, right? And we don't need the asset as well either. In fact, this whole material processing block can go away as well. So what we really want to do is we want to store the names of the material files. If they're, if they exist. So they can be loaded in a separate step, right? And we're going to get rid of the to-do. What we're going to do here is we should have now obj asset, source asset rather. You know what? I do need to promote that one as well. I need to elevate that one in scope. Where was that? Right here. Okay, so we have obj source assets. I think I actually just, what did I actually call that? obj asset. Right? And so we're going to have material file count, right? It's the first thing we should probably do. So we're going to set the value pointed to by out material file count is equal to that, right? So we're basically just dereferencing that and then storing that. And then we're also going to say the out material file names is going to be equal to a new... God, I could have swore we already did this. I could have swore I already did this previously, but I guess not. I don't know. All right, so we are going to create an array. So we're going to say k allocate type C array. The type of the array is going to be constant character pointer, right? And the count is going to be obj asset dot material file count, right? And so what that's going to do is that's going to create an array for us to jam all of the strings into, right? Oh, I know why I did this before. I actually had to change the serializer to handle this. That's what it was. So the serializer actually does this as well, right? So what we're going to actually do, let's see. Clean up obj assets. Ooh, we should probably be doing this. This doesn't even belong here. This belongs. This belongs... Oh, we did do it. What a dingus. I knew I did it. Dingus-oriented programming for the loss. All right. This was what I was talking about right here. So we already did do it, and we copied the array. Okay, so this is done then. Except for a couple warnings. I just needed to remove the references to the material stuff, or the MTL stuff. Okay. All right, so this one's done. And then what I need to do is look at the importer for, let's see, that's the obj importer. So now I need to look at the MTL importer. And that one is going to be kind of the same scenario. So we had this sort of out materials and out material count, which I was initially thinking we needed. But we don't actually need that. All we need is, to write those things to disk. So if we go ahead to the header file, we can actually remove those things as well. Right, so we can get rid of that, and then obviously we'll need to add strings kname back. And then over here, we just need to fix a couple other things, right? So a couple of the errors, rather. So we don't need any of that stuff, which means that we don't need that. Requires a valid pointer to data. It's the only thing that it really requires there. All right, so we don't need, whoops, we don't need this. We don't need this. And then the new material, we're actually just going to do... I guess we can actually switch this from being a pointer to just a stack variable. Right, because that's going to be kind of the same kind of thing. And then we can do new whoops, new material, arrow, and we'll change that to new material, dot, and then globally. Okay, and then all we have to do is pass the address of new material now, and we should be good on that. Let's see. 3 levels of indirection, nice. Yeah, I mean, so this is an importer, so I'm not really all that worried about it. If this was like core logic that we were doing, you know, within the context of a frame, I would think twice about it, right? But like, this is just importing assets, so like, if it's not that, it's not that imperative that we try to avoid that kind of stuff. And actually, I just thought about over here, we do take a copy of the material file names. Did we actually clean that up in the OBJ asset, though? Yes, we did. Okay. It is there. Okay. All right. I just want to make sure we're not leaking any memory. Okay. So that's that one. Let me just go back here for a second. Let's see. I think switch back to this, right? Because this is kind of the using of this sort of API is what kind of gave me this realization that we don't really need that anymore. So we need to actually probably check out the other importers. So image is definitely going to be one we're going to have to fix. And again, we're doing this out asset thing, which we don't need to do anymore. And so we don't need to do that here. And we don't need to do that here. And so all we need to do then, we don't need render, we might need render type utilities. Let's leave that for a second. Okay, so load the image. So we have out asset width and asset height and channel count. Okay, so these are the things that we are actually storing in the asset, which we no longer have a pointer to. So I think realistically, this is probably where we'd put that. So k-asset image, we'll call it out asset, sure, equals, it's a stack variable, right? And now, actually, just to temporarily clobber the errors, right? Let's rename this to asset and remove this and then go to, let's see, just replace asset arrow with asset dot and then do address of asset. Looks like we still got one other one here. We don't have out asset here anymore. Okay, so that one is fixed. Let's see. I guess the bitmap font one is the next one that's going to need fixing. Did we actually... So same thing. Delete this. Use kname instead. And then I guess it's going to be k-asset image out asset equals this. And then we're just going to call this asset. And then remove this, right? And again, find and replace all assets to asset dot. Why did I do image there? That should be bitmap font. And then we want the address of out, or the address of asset rather. Right? Is that okay? Asset bitmap font. Oh, asset probably is not. We can actually get rid of the scoping here. We'll solve that problem. Okay. So that's that one. Let me see. Character triple pointer, haven't seen it in the wild, but also haven't written C in prod, only C++. Is a type def for character triple pointer not canonical? I mean, I could type def it, right? But like, I don't know what I would really gain by doing that. The problem with like type defing pointer types away to something else is that you sort of lose that context when you're reading the code. Especially if you're reading the code like on GitHub or something like that, where you don't have an IDE to sort of tell you what that type def is right there in line. You kind of lose that context. So I kind of try to avoid doing that for stuff like that. If something's a pointer, I try not to type def that pointer away. So this is the power of a modal editor. Yeah, as you can see, I'm decently quick with it, right? I'm getting quicker with it every day, but yeah. How's it going, by the way, Raz? Good to see you. Khalib? Or is it Caleb? No, Khalib. I'm assuming I'm pronouncing that correct. I am doing well. Thank you for asking. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well. Bright Programmer, it's good to see you as well. I did take a chance, or I did get a second to look at your library. Yes. Yeah, I'm not sure what feedback you wanted on it, though. But yeah, I see what you're trying to do there. And it's definitely like an interesting project for sure. Tried Helix yesterday, by the way, and it's amazing. So Helix is one of those things like the way that Vim highlights versus performing actions is sort of the opposite to what Helix does. And I tried it and I couldn't wrap my brain around it. Probably because I'm so ingrained in the way of doing things the Vim way that I just couldn't get it, right? However, that being said, because I'm a glutton for punishment, I am working on an editor of my own, which I haven't shown on here yet, but I'm jokingly calling it Notepad++, which is basically my Vim replacement, which is essentially, it's essentially Vim the way that I want it configured out of the box, but it's not Vim. It's like my own thing that I've written from scratch. So yeah. But yeah, until then, I'm going to stick with NeoVim for sure. I've heard good things about Helix. I couldn't make it work. This has become, using this the way that I use it has become a little bit of a, I guess, like mechanical to me, like muscle memory type of thing. Did I say Notepad++? I meant Notepad minus minus. What did I say? I might have bollocks that. What did I say, DMN? I said plus plus. I meant minus minus. Yeah, no, Notepad minus minus is what it is. Yeah. Yeah, I probably bollocks that because I was using Notepad++ earlier today. But yes, I call it Notepad minus minus. Let's see. Ava. I'm going to pronounce the name that way. I don't know if that's correct, but hello, how are you? Hope you're doing well. Thank you for asking. I am doing well. We're doing pretty well tonight, I think. Notepad plus minus. I actually thought about that too, right? But like, my thought with minus minus was like, we're taking, we're keeping it lean and mean, right? Keeping it super, super lean. And so instead of doing what most editors do and just adding crap on top of crap, we're we're stripping things out and keeping it as lean and mean as possible. That's the idea, anyways. Optimistic, regardless of hidden negative thoughts inside me. Story of my life, my friend. Story of my life. I feel you. I don't envy you implementing LSP support. Yeah, that's the next big thing I have to do, actually. That's going to be fine. It's going to be just fine, I'm sure. Not going to be any problems with that. It's going to be fine. Are you using any special memory allocation strategy like arenas? Yes, we are. Yeah, we have our own allocators, including our own Vulkan allocator, which still needs a lot of work. But yeah, we do have our own allocators in here. So I've got one sort of large arena that I dole out everything for the engine from that. And then outside of that, I've got a couple of different allocators. The one that's most important is what I call a linear allocator, which essentially is an allocator that I use and reset every frame for frame specific allocations that have to happen within a frame but need to be fast. And that one doesn't maintain like a free list or anything like that. It simply just moves a pointer along a block of memory. So obviously you don't want to blow that out, right? But like, yeah. So we have a couple of different allocators that we use, but yeah, the primary one that sort of powers everything else is basically an arena. Yep, we call it a dynamic allocator because it has a free list and all that stuff to manage manager allocations. But yeah, we do have that. Let's see. Singy, how's it going over there on the YouTube side? Good to see you, man. All right, let me think. So we have bitmap font. Let's see, we already did static mesh. We already did we do material? I don't think we did material yet. Yes, we did material. I think the only other one maybe is audio. Yeah, and we actually haven't converted this one yet. So this is the one that sort of uses some of our other external libraries for parsing audio files, because I did not want to write an MP3 parser and a OGG parser, right, or a decoder, I should say. I don't have time for all that, right? So we did use single header libraries, header only libraries is the term I'm looking for. Words. We did use that for Vorbis and MP3 files. Just because it was not worth the effort in writing decoders for those things from scratch. That's already a very much solved problem and something that I didn't find a whole lot of value in implementing from scratch. So we do use those in here, but that is fine because this is not part of the core runtime. This is a external library that we use for a tooling, right? It's a tertiary sort of thing, right? So it's not core to our runtime. Our engine knows nothing about it, and so I'm okay with library use in this case. All right, so the way that this one was working was still using the old sort of importer structure. So we have KAsset importer, audio import. This one should probably be, why is this says image? That should be audio. So this one we need to get rid of the asset here because we're not going to do that anymore, which means we can also get rid of these guys, and then we also need to convert this to take in kname, asset name, kname, that should be output asset name, and then kname output package name. And then we don't need this sort of structure anymore, having to do with, the importer sort of interface that we had, for lack of a better term. We don't need that stuff anymore. So we want to use kname, and then we're going to take this and go back here to the implementation file. We're going to paste this in here, and we're essentially going to replace that, right? So all we need to do is we need to check to make sure that we have data size and data coming in. And then anywhere we have hard-coded function names like this, I'm swapping those out now to use just function. Just in case we ever refactor it, we don't have to, have out-of-date things like that. So it should be a valid pointer. This should be a valid pointer to data, as well as a non-zero data size. So that is correct. Now, here we have typed assets, so we're definitely going to rename this, right? But let's go ahead and do that. And then let's go ahead and rename this to just asset. And then we're going to just use the sort of shortcut here to initialize the whole thing to 0. And then, let's see. Okay, so this is something that we haven't actually run into thus far. So our audio imports, we have, we have data, we have data size, we have this params, which we're not really going to use. That was sort of the old interface way of doing it. So let's actually get rid of params. And let's do extension, right? And the reason for that is because the extension is going to tell us how exactly we're going to import this, right? So that's just kind of an extra property that this guy needs, and that's fine. We don't have to follow a strict interface anymore, so let's do that. And then all we have to do here is, caps lock, you dingus. Let's see, so we want to do extension here. We're going to do a strings equal I check, so we'll stick with that. But we're going to do .mp3, right? Because we're gonna have the extension include the sort of dot, right? So we're going to say compare the extension and see if that is equal to mp3, right? And if it is, then we know we're processing an mp3. And so we have kname string get, and this is going to be output asset name, right? So that's just for reporting purposes. Looks like we only have a couple of more errors actually in here to fix. We've got a bunch of dead code in here. To do new, to do old. I think we need to clean this up a little bit, actually, because I don't think any of this old stuff actually is needed anymore. Let's see. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. Welcome. Linear allocator, that's like the 5th different name I saw being used for that allocator type. Yeah, I got the terminology for that. From this hefty guy, the Game Engine Architecture book, right? Which I'm always recommending on stream, by Jason Gregory. This is an excellent book, by the way. If you're looking for a book about game engine architecture, this is a really good one. But yeah, that's what he calls it in there. And that name kind of stuck with me. It makes the most sense. Yeah, bump allocator, I've seen it called that too. Yep. Linear allocator is just kind of the name that makes the most sense to me. Bump allocator, to me, I get it, but it doesn't make as much sense. Like, I don't know. Part of it's because, I always think of the the expression, bump that, if you're talking about, saying like, it's like another way of saying F that or something like that. So that's what it always makes me think of. But yeah, people call it arena as well. I have a sort of different definition of arena. But yeah, like there's different names for it for sure. Kuju, rating with a party of 31. Holy cow. Thank you so much, sir. How are you doing today? Gotta go real fast. Good luck with your stream. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the raid. I'm gonna toss a quick shout out to Cujo. If you guys aren't following Cujo, he is making a game in Jai called Fat Goblins, and it is absolutely an awesome looking game, and I can't wait to actually get my hands on it to be able to play it. But I'd highly recommend you guys go give him a follow for sure. You added a wah 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 peanuts like effect as opposed to a mute button. Nice. Only kind of works right now, but does technically work, I guess. That's awesome. Yeah, your game is coming along so nicely though. Every time I look at it, I'm just like, damn, that's a really good looking game. It looks like it's gonna be a lot of fun. For voice chat, okay, yeah, I knew you were working on the voice chat thing, so okay, that makes a little bit more sense. Soul Foam, what's going on, buddy? Good to see you. Good to see you. All right. Welcome, Raiders. I will go ahead and give just a quick introduction as to what the heck we're doing here. So we are making something called the Kohi game engine. I'll drop a link to the site we're looking at in the chat. It is a game engine built from scratch using C as the programming language, and the initial rendering backend is Vulkan. I say initial rendering backend because we are actually going to have support for Direct 3D as well as Metal at a minimum. It is cross-platform compatible, meaning it runs on Windows, Linux, and macOS desktop environments. We do have other platforms planned for the future. The series itself started off as a YouTube series on how to build a game engine. Right? It's a way to build a game engine. It's not the only way to build a game engine. It's not even necessarily always the right way to build a game engine. But what we do is we try and experiment with a lot of different things on the stream. And some things work, some things don't work. When they don't work, we actually do a deep dive into why that thing didn't work, right? So sometimes we'll kind of purposely go down the wrong path on something just to explain and show why maybe that's not the best approach. And like I said, we experiment a lot. So we do simulcast to YouTube and Twitch. The project itself is free and open source. So it is Apache 2.0 license, which basically means that you can use it for whatever you wish, whether that's personal or commercial. It does not matter. The only thing that I ask is if you use it to say that you used it. That's literally it. There will never be any sort of royalties or licensing fees of any kind ever associated with the engine. The engine will always be free and open source. This is designed to be an educational resource, and I believe that stuff should be free. So I don't have any sort of sponsors. I don't have any of that stuff aside from you guys. I will never paywall anything having to do with the game engine. None of that kind of stuff, right? Because like I said, I believe that stuff should be free. Scrolling down here a little bit, again, we have some links to YouTube and Twitch. We do have a Discord community of about 1,000 people, and then we have a GitHub link here to the engine, and of course the Patreon link, and the Twitch stream down here at the bottom. That is basically sort of the engine half of the project, and then we're actually building a game with it. So we've done a lot of design. I added to this a little bit today, but we're building a 3D isometric action RPG with this. That's going to be our first game. And so what that means is, since we've built a brand new engine, we're going to be changing back and forth between engine and game a lot, right? We're going to see like, oh, this thing in the engine doesn't work so well, so let's go fix that, and then come back to the game, and then, hey, this thing needs to be tweaked, right? And the idea is that we'll iron out the kinks as we're going, and then eventually we'll hit a point where we're almost all in the game development sort of realm and working in game code and not so much in the engine, right? So we've just started this. We have a lot of world setting and lore and mechanics and things specced out in this document. I'm not going to go through it because it's already 29 pages. Like I said, I just added to this today, so it's very much a living, breathing document, if you will. And just to give an idea, one thing that we did spend a little bit of time on is sort of the world map. So we do have this world called Illumina, and this is a quick view of what that world map looks like. So we've got 3 continents here, 2 of which are mostly fleshed out. This third one over here still needs a little bit of work. But we've got lore associated with most of these zones in here, right? So that is where we are at on that. So I hope that all makes sense. Let me go ahead and catch up on chat real quick. Where's your presentation? Yeah, so I saw a really good idea on Oculus' stream. He put together a slideshow for this to sort of give the 30-second pitch, and I think I'm going to do the same thing. Just haven't had time to get to it yet, frankly. Okay. Thank you for the hydrate redeem. I appreciate that. My RTV, hello, how's it going so far? It's going well. Thank you for asking. And hello to you as well. Welcome. Can you look at my game and show it on your Twitch? That's not really the purpose of this channel. I don't really do that all that often. Although maybe at some point we'll have a stream when we do that. So, what I could say though is if you want to sort of talk about your game, feel free to hop on the Discord server. We do have a channel where you can post links to your projects and stuff like that. So that might be a better forum for it than on here. That would save you a lot of words. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. Vim Diesel. Okay. Vim Diesel redeemed a posture check. Dude, your name is awesome. I wish I would have thought of that. Vim Diesel. That's incredible. I love the name. Posture check. Yeah, I guess I'm already kind of sitting Vim Diesel. That's so epic. I love it. I just had to call that out. That's awesome. I wish I had that name, to be honest. That's awesome. I love it. That is epic. Flask, good to see you as well. Rugs, hello. How's it going? Almost a D's nuts joke. Yeah, I know, right? Almost. All right. Cool. So, where were we? Okay, so we were in the middle of sort of reworking our asset import pipeline. And so we've got all these sort of importers, we call them. It's not like a structure or thing that we build. It's really just a function, right? And they're just kind of split into different files just for organizational purposes, right? But all of these importers are now in an external library to the engine, and we are actually in the process of just externalizing all of that stuff and reworking the way that we import assets versus the sort of old way that we did it. So the old way that we did it was we would actually have the engine was responsible for essentially keeping track of what we call a source and a primary asset. And so think of an image asset, for example, right? You have a JPEG or a bitmap or a PNG or a target or whatever. That would be considered the source format, right? And then we have a proprietary format, an image format that the engine recognizes and uses. And so we have to transfer from one format to any one of those formats to our engine proprietary format. And so we had this process within the engine, and the engine was actually understood the sort of import process and would say, let's check to see if the primary asset exists. If it doesn't exist, see if the source asset exists for that. And if it does, import it and then load the primary asset, right? So what we're doing is we are separating all of that stuff, and we're taking that import process out of the core runtime. Because it doesn't really belong there. So when we ship a game, for example, we don't need that import functionality. And we're putting that in an external tool library. And so what the engine is going to do is, or the way that it's going to work now, is the import process will be separate executable that runs. And you can choose to run it at any point. It's completely separate, so it has no dependencies on the engine. And it basically reads our asset manifest, which I should probably pull up here so that we can see what that looks like. Let's see. There we go. So the asset manifest looks like something like this, right? And so there's one of these assets or asset manifests per package, right? So this is the game package that we're looking at. And so most of, or a lot of our sort of asset types really only have just a primary path, right? So the path is to the primary asset. Some of them have a source path. That's to the source asset, right? So in this case, we have a static mesh, right? So the KSM is the Kohi static mesh format. The OBJ is the source format. And so previously, the engine would sort of load this up and say, hey, try to load this file. If it doesn't exist, import this file, which would create this file on disk and then load it. So the way that this is going to work now is this file is going to be read by this external tool process. And it's basically going to go through here and say, hey, any of these that have a source path, let's examine the primary path on it. And if this does not exist, or the timestamp on this is older than the timestamp on the source path file, then go ahead and perform an import and write to this file. And then the engine, if the engine happens to be running and hot reloading is enabled, all the engine has to do is put a watch on this file and say, hey, if this file gets updated, just hot reload it. And that'll be it, right? Instead of having the engine worry about all of this other sort of nonsense here with importing, that should really be externalized. The other benefit to externalizing this is when we get ready to create the editor application, which eventually will be externalized, that can simply point to this tool and perform that import automatically for us. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. All right. Sergeant Pepper, how's it going? Good to see you. How are you doing, buddy? Welcome. Let's see. Doing all right, home alone with the kid until Monday evening. Going to try and make some more learning progress this week. Nice, good stuff. GP, good to see you as well. Welcome. Anyone tried the new text editor called Edit that MSFT open source? The new one? Wait, they wrote that without any third-party libraries. Huh. Interesting. Okay. So Edit is if that's the one I'm thinking of, that's a terminal application, a terminal editor that I used to use to edit MS-DOS QBasic files. So yeah, that definitely takes me back. When is the next stream? So about that, actually, this is probably while we have a bunch of people on here. I should probably mention this. So I do have some stuff going on in IRL, as it were. So I'm going to be taking the next week of streaming off, actually, because I've got some things that I need to deal with, and I need to be able to focus on those. So I'm actually going to be taking a break for next week, but I will be back the week after. So the next stream is going to be not next Wednesday, but the Wednesday after that. So that would be, let's see, the 4th. The 4th of June. Yeah, it's going to be the next stream. So normally it's not that long, right? Normally we stream every Wednesday and Thursday night. But yeah, I'm taking the week off next week. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit longer than normal. Let's see. Sergeant Pepper, yeah. I see the word used there, the 4-letter R word. Let's see. Scale to 1. Stephen MBCC, first time chatter, welcome, by the way. Scale from 1 to 10. How difficult is it to code and program? Like, how long realistically would it take to learn from scratch? Also, is there a job market and how much do they make? Boy, that's a loaded question. Okay. So I'm going to break that down because there's several parts to that, right? So when you say difficult to code and program, the difficulty varies on a bunch of things, right? It varies on the experience you have and your knowledge of how computers work. Um, B, it varies on what language and what tech stack you choose, right? And when I say tech stack, that means language is part of that, but there's also things like, are you doing database programming? Are you doing web programming? Are you doing game programming? Are you doing desktop application programming? Are you doing mobile programming? The answers for all of those things are way different, right? So it's a little bit nebulous, right? How long would it realistically take to learn them from scratch? It depends on what you're talking about, right? What type of programming you're talking about. Same thing has to go with job market, right? So the biggest job market out there is going to be web development out of all of it, right? Web dev is definitely, there's the most jobs available for that, hands down. Um, Other things like game development are super competitive to get into. Mobile app development, yeah, there's a decent amount of stuff out there for that too. But yeah, web development is going to be hands down, the biggest opportunity there, and probably the best paying, to be completely honest. Unless you're going into something super specific, like learning COBOL to work on banking systems, and then you'll make bank doing that. But then you have to write COBOL, right? So there's all kinds of variations on the answer. There's not really one size fits all answer to that. I will say this though. There are lots of resources available on the internet. Many of them at least allow you to get started and learn, the basics. You could probably pick up the basics of writing some code in a couple of days. However, to get good with that and to fully understand what you're doing takes years, right? It's not something you could just pick up and like run with, right? And bam, you're an expert in 6 months. It's just not going to happen. So setting realistic expectations is a good part of it, but it can be very lucrative depending on where you are in the world. There are better places to get employment for development versus others. Jobs in the U.S. tend to pay programmers higher than some other parts of the world. So it really depends on, where you're at with that and whatnot. So as you can see, like there's a lot of variables into it, and I really haven't even scratched the surface on those variables. But I hope that kind of helps a little bit. I know it's really sort of generic and very high level, but so is kind of the question, right? No. So Vim Diesel, I have not actually banned anybody for saying on the channel. We do try to keep it family friendly here. So like, we don't say the name of this editor. We have to bleep it. So we just say, VS. For example. We got to keep it family friendly. Starting your GDD. I assume you mean game design document, Sergeant Pepper. That's awesome. That's the terminal editor. Yep. Okay. Yeah. That question will take the remainder of the stream and part of the next. Yeah. I probably should come up with I should probably write an article about that actually and point people to it. Oh, you got an ad mid answer. Oh, that sucks. One thing that we do have here, all of these are on VODs though. So if you got an ad for this will be available on YouTube, and you can also go and look at it there. There's a VOD on Twitch. It stays there for 60 days, and then on YouTube, it's there in perpetuity. So you can always pull this up on YouTube after the fact and see my whole answer there. Thank you for the follows, by the way. Appreciate that. Yes, Jeet, you actually bring up a good point. Check out CS50X. It's for beginners. It's a free course. Yes. So Harvard actually has a CS50 course that's free on YouTube. Check it out. Go through it. I've recommended it a bunch of times. It's a really good way to get started for sure. Let's see. Web development is the biggest opportunity and highest pay. Oh, okay, you broke it down. Okay, cool. All right. Let's see. Thanks for the answer and the honesty. Dabble in Blender, Photoshop, videography just seems like a passion. Hobby that is very tight job nut to crack. Yeah, I mean, it can be, right? But like, you'll hit this point where it just clicks, and then all of a sudden you'll just run with it. All Chromium maps need to be burned. It's not just beep code. Yeah. I like calling it beep code. I'm okay with that. You could say VS beep or beep code. I'm okay with that. That's not bannable. Skipping frames. Yep, I see that as well. I think my internet is a little bit weird tonight. Did it come back? I think it's back. My OBS says I'm doing... Yeah, I did drop some frames. Okay. Oof. All right. Hopefully that's done. It looks okay now. All right. Dropped a few frames, and it seems okay now. Yeah, I see that it dropped quite a number of frames actually. Unfortunately, but yeah, hopefully it's okay now. All right. With all of this in mind, this is basically what we're working to. So I think let me actually just close that guy. Got to download some more internets. Yeah, the annoying part is I actually I'm paying for the 1 gig fiber, right? So it should be pretty good, but I have a suspicion that it might be my router actually that needs resetting. It's almost never the internet, but I can't reset the router without completely clobbering the stream, so hopefully it doesn't get too bad. All right, so when we're importing an MP3 asset, I guess I should probably actually fix the whole pointer thing first. So let's get rid of this, and then let's do our find and replace there. And then, let's see, hack test. Okay, so this was a test for me importing things. I don't really need this anymore. This can actually go away. This is just dead stuff. And then we also have old stuff here, which I don't think I need either. So we can actually clean that up as well. Okay, so this is MP3 format. Oops. So MP3 import. And then we have OGG down here. So and instead of source type, that's going to be extension, and we want the dot there, right? And then this is going to be out asset name. Okay. And then we have wave, which I do need to support that eventually, but we don't yet. But I'm still going to go ahead and fix this bit. So extension, and then dot wave. Let's see. This is output asset name. And then unsupported audio source file format, ya dingus. So that's just going to be extension. Okay. Let's see. So kasset binary audio serialize. This is going to just be kasset audio serialize. So it's going to use that serializer, and then we're going to have the address of asset here. And then we need to do a VFS asset write binary. And I believe is that package name first? Asset name, then package name. Okay, so output asset name, output package name. We don't need that anymore. We need the serialized block size and the serialized block. That should be everything we need for that. All right. So that is the importer on there. I'm just going to put a note in here. Extension requires prepended dot. I'll add proper comments at some point, but not important for right now. Okay, so that's the audio importer the KAsset importer audio import. I'm kind of tempted to rewrite or rename some of these things because, like, it's not an importer anymore. We had that concept before, right? But we don't really have that now. Let me think about this for a second. So I guess we could call it KAsset audio import, right? I think that actually does make a lot more sense. So let's do that. And then I guess we should probably also do this for the image importer. So KAsset image import. Okay, we already did rename that one. Static mesh. Yeah, we should probably rename this one too. Static mesh, and then bitmap font I'm sure is going to need a rename as well. So let's rename this to just be KAsset static mesh obj import. And then, yeah, that's right. Okay. Importer MTL. We'll go into this one and rename this guy as well, just to simplify things just a little bit more. And then importers. So this one also. KAsset bitmap font FNT import. If I can spell it right. Yep. Okay. Okay. So obj imports. Yeah. Okay. I think we're good on that. Okay. So let's just build this real quick. Okay, KAsset importer. Okay, so that's kind of the central application that we're going to build. So this guy is essentially what ties all of these separate importers together, right? So essentially what we do here is we examine what the extension is. And this is one of the reasons I'm saying that the extension for some of our importers should include the dot, is because we actually include that here. So essentially what we are going to do here is check what the extension is, and then based off the extension, we will go ahead and activate the correct importer. So in this case, it is just that, right? Now, this used to actually take, in fact, I didn't actually finish filling this out, right? So we should probably actually, obj imports. Did we not? So this has data and data size. Obj import. Isn't this just a text file? Pretty sure it is, actually. Deserialize data. Yeah, why did we do it this way? This is just a text file, so we don't actually need data size. And this should be a const character pointer, right? Or string, rather. So this should be, we don't need data size. That's kind of ridiculous, right? We can just use that, and then we don't need that either. And then we can actually get rid of all of this stuff out of the error message. Okay, so that's the obj import. Obj mtl. Yeah, we did it right on this one, just not the other one. Okay. So what this should be doing is all we need to do here is pass for data. We need content. And then material file count, we have that. Material file names, we have that. And then we don't need this any longer. All right, so this makes things a lot simpler, right? So we can do success equals ksset static mesh obj import. So we give it the asset name, the package name, the content, which we retrieved previously here. I'll show that in a second. And then we output the material file count, which is here, and an array of strings, which is here. So the content is gotten from, we use the file system directly in this case. And so when we actually say we want to import using this, we import from a path, right? So this knows nothing about asset names or package names, right? We provide those things for context when we actually write the stuff out. But here we actually provide a path to the asset on disk. And the reason that we do that is basically this is saying this is where the source file is located on disk, right? Wherever that may be, whether it's a relative or absolute path. And then we have asset name here, which is basically going to be the target asset name. And then this is the package we want to import into. And so what we do here is, we check the extension. Okay, this is an OBJ. We know that's a text file, so we can read the entire text file. Obviously, we want to make sure that we got that successfully, and then we go ahead and we pass it on to this import process. The import process will then take the name and the package name, and it will know where to write that on disk. There is a little bit of a caveat to that, though, because I think, we're going to have to actually get that information from the asset manifest, which we haven't actually read in yet. So we're going to need to do that as well. Let's see. As you said that on my end, Twitch died and I had to reload. Timing is insanely funny. I love it when stuff like that happens. It's very funny. Won't LLU create problems for cross-platform, if I remember correctly? Does it? I've never seen an issue with it. I use this cross-platform, and I haven't seen an issue with it yet, but what are you supposed to use? I thought LLU was what you should use. Let's see. What does this say? Using C to print unsigned long int. I don't know if there are. ULL seems to work. I don't know if there are issues with that. That's a good point. I've not actually run into it. Cross-platform. I don't know. I've never actually run into an issue with it, so I'm not sure. Oh, wait. Here we go. UNT64T with printf LOU does not work. Oh, it might be a stdlib thing. So, okay. Yeah, I've never actually run into that problem, so that's interesting. I'll have to look into that. When the military decides to fly a fleet of Osprey over your area, you're like, what is that noise? I bet. I bet that was an interesting cacophony, right? Let's see. BK over on the YouTube side says, hi, I was going to ask you, I have some background about C. Should I stick with it or learn CPP because I want to make a GUI app and graphics programming? I love C, but I noticed that books cover C++ for OpenGL. Okay, so my answer to that question is this. Again, as with most things in computer science, it depends, right? So are you looking for employment in that area, or are you just doing this as a hobby? Because if you're just doing it as a hobby, use whatever you're comfortable with, right? I program in C, right? I choose to use C over C++ because I prefer it. If you're looking for employment in graphics programming, though, that's a different story. You're going to want to know C++. I would say, though, have a strong foundation in C, which it sounds like you might already have. So have a really strong background in C and then learn C++. It'll make C++ a lot easier to learn because you understand how C works. C++ sort of tries to abstract a lot of things away that C kind of made you do manually. But if you have that understanding at the C level, you'll be fine. I always thought it was strange. Int, long, etc. wasn't strictly defined as a set number of bits. Yeah, because it changed as platforms evolved, right? Like when all of that stuff was initially written, you had 8 bits or 16 bits, and then you had 32 bits, and now you have 64, and so there's no. The spec basically just says it's guaranteed to be a minimum of X number of bytes, but it could be beyond that. Let's see, stretch and posture check. I appreciate that. Thank you for those redeems. I could use the stretch actually. My shoulders and my arms are like really messed up today for some reason. I don't know why. What's shaking bacon? How's it going? Say hello. First time chat. Welcome. What's shaking bacon? You know what? Oops, turn my light on over there. I'm gonna make some bacon in the morning. Actually, bacon sounds good. It maybe made a lot more sense in the past. It definitely did, right? Because the size of an integer, specific int, has changed over time, right? So yeah, it definitely did make more sense in the past. Now that everything's pretty much 64-bit across the board, it makes a little bit less sense. But like if you think about the history of it, it does make more sense. It just says that's why the spec always says a minimum of, like an int is guaranteed to be a minimum of 32 bits, right? Was just listening for a bit while doing dishes and heard you mention OBJ. Are you using OBJ files for your engine? Or also doing GLTF FBX files. So right now for my static meshes, I'm using OBJ. I do have plans to implement GLTF slash GLB. And I'm going to actually need that for animated meshes, which we actually have to put in as well. FBX, I haven't really decided whether I'm going to support that or not. But more than likely, what I'm going to do is, and this is part of the reason we're setting up this importer structure, is because I might switch to using something like Asimp to import those meshes to a proprietary format that I use in the engine. And I think, as far as our importers go, I'm fine with using libraries for that, but I don't want it in our core code. So it's great to have the importers be a separate tool just for this reason. Exactly. Yep. That's exactly why I'm splitting it up. For sure. I had a horrible experience with FBX. Hopefully you fare better. Yeah, the problem with FBX is it's a proprietary format. And people have sort of reverse engineered it and mostly figured it out, but it's not exactly what you would call consistent. Um, yeah, it's very popular. It was very popular, especially a number of years ago. GLTF has kind of taken over for that, but FBX is still pretty popular. Um, let's see on Windows, a long is 32 bits, while on Linux it's 64 bits. Yeah, exactly. Which is why I use long. Yep. Because long is at least 64 bits. It's one of those another at least, right? Um, which is the reason I use that. I might actually, push comes to shove, just import the FBX into Blender and export to GLTF. Yeah, and that's kind of the direction I'm leaning towards with FBX, to be completely honest. Because every one of these importers that I write, I have to support, right? And once this engine gets to a point where people are actually able to start using it, I suspect that's going to be a massive pain in the ass in some cases. So I think I'm probably going to limit the number of formats that I support. On an IBM mainframe, a long is 128 bits. Yeah, exactly. That's what, like, it's that whole specifications thing where they say it's a minimum. It represents a minimum of this, but it can be something else. That's why, that's why I do this, right? So I have all my typed Fs here. Where I say, unsigned long is U64, for example. But then I come down here and I have static assertions on the size of all of these things. Because I don't trust it, right? So if anybody ever builds this, they'll get a build error for this if it's not the right size. And then I can fix that, potentially. But, yeah. That's the way I'm handling that. So that way, it will break the build if somebody's on a platform that does something foobar. And then they can report that error, and I can look at it from there. Why not just use stdint? I've thought about it. I could. I just haven't. To be honest, this is kind of... I've ported this over from code bases that I've used for the last 15 years or so. And I've always just kind of done it this way. And so, it's just kind of something that I just kind of carried over. And it's always the way that I've kind of done it. It just works. So if it ain't broke, why fix it, right? It's not really that much different from using stdint, other than I don't have to include it. So the less of the standard library I have to include, the better. I'm looking at eliminating it entirely at some point. Hello, I'm writing my own custom 3D engine in C at the moment and stuck on how to write up 3D perspective movement system. Do you know any resources I can check out? So we actually did that in this series. It's Vulkan specific, but the concepts are the same. So you could check out my series if you want around that. You could also check out... there's a couple of other game engine series that kind of touch on that kind of stuff. It's kind of generic in terms of how you do it. Like the way that it works is the same across the board. You basically just modify your view matrix, and that is what essentially moves your camera around. But do you mean third person? Megatz actually has a good point. Do you mean third person, like orbiting? I read that as 3D perspective movement, not third person perspective. Yeah, that's something different. So I actually did something similar to that on stream as well. So I think it was within the racing game that I was making for a little bit that I kind of shelved. We actually did that as well, but the concept is basically the same. So you essentially essentially what you need to do is whatever object that you're following, you need to get its position and its direction vector, whatever its forward vector is, and then move your camera back along that forwards direct or along that vector, so backwards along that vector, and then generally up a little bit to get your position. And then you can use like a look at to sort of get the camera to point at whatever object it is that you're looking at. You can generate a view matrix or a look at matrix rather from that and that position, that offset position, and then you just recalculate that every frame. And then if you need to, what's the word I'm looking for? If you need to, God, why can't I think of what the word is? Tween it. If you need to tween that, that's something additional on top of that that you can do. But that's not too hard either. There's a look at matrix. You can give it the camera location, target location. Yeah, exactly. So the look at matrix is going to be your friend for sure. And then, in order to position the camera, you just get essentially the backward vector, and then you move up along the y-axis, assuming your up is positive y. That's essentially what it is. Okay. Where was I? I think we were on the audio importer. Did I get that finished? I think I did. I think this is where we left off. Okay. So this is sort of the main entry point into all of our import logic, right? So this is going to be what we want to actually handle. Now, excuse me, we do have OBJ here, and we do have MTL. And what we can get from the OBJ is potentially a list of material file names, right? And so we can either process a material file name this way, or we can process a material file this way, provided directly, right? So, whether we import a material file directly, or whether we import a MTL file or MTL files that were retrieved from an OBJ file, we need to go through the same sort of path of code, right? So the way that I'm going to do this is I'm actually just going to set up, first off, a loop up here. So I'm going to say for u32i 0, I is less than material file count, and then plus I, right? And then for each one of these, we're essentially going to take the material file name sub I, and we are going to perform an import on that, right? So we essentially want to do, I guess we should we mark? I don't think I'm going to, let me code it out and I'll explain what I'm thinking. I'm just thinking about the success variable here, right? The overall success of the import. I'm going to count an OBJ import as being successful if the base OBJ imported successfully. Even if one of its material files or MTL files that it references does not import correctly, we can bleat about that in the console. And then, that could be fixed separately. But that still means that this technically imported correctly, which is what we were after. And so that should be fine. So I think what we're going to do here is, let's see. Let's just go ahead and just grab this real quick. So we'll say MTL file name equals material file names sub I. And then what we'll do is k asset static, or actually material. Did we not have? We don't have it included. Importers, and then we want the material obj MTL, right? So here we want to do k-assets, material, obj, mtl, import. And so this is going to be a little bit tricky, right? Because actually we have material file names, which is ultimately going to be the name of the asset that we're going to output, right? But we don't want to use the entire file name because that file name is actually includes the .mtl, which we don't want as part of the actual asset name. So what we need to do is string file name from path, right? And so, that requires a destination. I thought I fixed that to not work that way. Boo. I thought directory from path, file name from path, no extension from path. This is the only one I actually fixed. Interesting. Oh, that's annoying. Okay. So the problem with this is sort of the old school way of doing this. I probably ought to fix this at some point. Essentially what it requires is a already allocated buffer to put the directory or the file name from a path in. And then, it parses this string and essentially gets the file name from it. But you already have to have a pre-allocated buffer here, right? Which is kind of annoying. And I'm trying to kind of get away from doing that. Maybe I'll mark this as an unsafe function. It's a bit of a to-do item, but I don't really want to do it now. Let's see. Oh, can I see the wallpaper? Yeah. Oops. There it is. I don't remember where I got it, but it was pretty cool. I found it just on a Google search. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. I like it. I'll check out the series. Is it this engine series? Also, thanks for the pointers. Yes, it is this. Well, okay, so some of what you're going to be looking for is in the game engine series, and then there was something also called Overdrive 2069, where we started kind of building a game, and then I'm like, I don't really want to do this for multiple reasons, but the camera follow logic is in there, so that might be where you want to actually look. Thank you for the tier 1 sub, by the way. I really appreciate that support. Thank you very much. That means a lot to me. Really appreciate that. Orshi, how's it going? Good to see you, buddy. Yeah, it is a pretty cool background. I like it. Although I almost never see it, but yeah. I do see it, I guess, when I, am, cycling through all the other, peak windows that I have, when I'm cycling through stuff. I can see it, but I usually don't bother, but I've had that one for a while now, so. All right, anyway. Getting distracted here. So, we need a buffer to put this into. Do we have... I don't think we do. We don't have a max file name. So what I'm going to do is... Oh, that's really unsafe to do that, though. I'm just going to fix it. Screw it. Okay. What I want to do is change these to work this way. Right, so they return, I guess I could make it const. I don't know, yeah, let's make it const. right? So that we don't have to have a destination, right? We could just say, I want to process this string and return a copy of the string. That's essentially a substring when you think about it. That contains what we're looking for, right? So what we'll do is we'll just do return the destination for, actually we'll just say the file name, right? And then we'll do, oops, wow, I completely butchered that. We'll do the, oh yeah, the file name, okay, whoops. The file name, and then the file name without extension. Okay, the file name with extension. Be a little bit more explicit. Okay, and then this is going to be the directory, right? So I guess we'll have to do, we'll have to go into our string library and fix this, right? So this is going to be this. Now, I fully realize that this is performing a dynamic allocation that we didn't previously do. However, since we are sort of moving our code base away from using strings, especially in the runtime, I'm not really concerned with this too much. This is the type of thing that our utilities would use. Maybe we would use sparingly for things like the UI, but generally speaking, for most things like assets or names or package names or anything like that, we use a k-name for this, which is basically a hashed integer, which is way more efficient for comparison anyways. And so that is essentially what we would use there. So I'm not really concerned about sort of the overhead of this. Okay, so we have string and copy. Do we have this modifies the string in place, so we probably have to fix that one too, but I'm not going to do it for right now. I guess, let's see, I don't think we have a really good way to do this. So let's do new length equals, oh, wait a minute. I don't necessarily want to do that. Shoot. Let's make this easier on ourselves. Let's also include a j equals 0, right? And we'll do a plus plus j here, just to make it a little bit more readable, right? I could do some arithmetic to figure this out, but like it's a lot easier, I think, if I just do it this way. So we'll say new length equals j, plus 1, right? To account for a null terminator. And then what we'll do is we'll do a allocate the size is going to be new length, and the memory tag is going to be string, right? And then we'll copy into that. So we'll say character array dest equals that. We copy into that. Null terminate the string. Did I get that right? I think so. Yeah, I think so. And then return dest. Otherwise, let's see. We will I'm just trying to think. Oh, this dest. This shouldn't be in here. Wait a minute. Maybe it should be. Yeah, so only if we find a backslash or... I think... How do I want to set this up? Do we want to return... So the string directory from path, if we don't find a slash, there's two ways we could handle this. We either return no string, or we return the entire string. We haven't specified here how we want to handle that. I think before, it wasn't actually writing anything, so it was effectively a null string. So we could just do return 0 here. If it doesn't find that. Maybe that's the way to go. Let's see. How flexible is Kohi at its current stage, like adding random stuff at the scene? So we can do it in our scene configuration file. We can actually move stuff around in our scene, select objects and move them around, change rotation, position, scale, all that stuff, and save it. But we don't actually have like a full-blown editor yet where we can like drag and drop things into it and that kind of stuff. We're gonna have to build all that. So it's still kind of early days, and I'm actually going to change the way that scenes work anyways to make it a little bit easier to work with, A, and B, I'm going to extract that to game-specific logic, because I came to the conclusion that scenes are highly game-specific, and different game types are going to require different things out of the scene. So it makes zero sense for me to actually make the scene as part of the core engine. Now, maybe we can generalize that later and come up with sort of a cookie cutter version of the scene that maybe is included with the engine. But like ultimately, the application should be driving those decisions. And if we get too generic with things, that tends to make the code overly complicated. And with over complicated code tends to come performance penalties. So that's going to be one of the things that we're going to be changing as well, is how the scene works. But I know that's kind of a long-winded answer to your question, but that's kind of where we're at as far as scenes go. Okay. So this is going to wind up being something very similar. So I'm actually just going to avoid potential copy pasta errors. I'm going to do all of this, at least that part here. I am going to copy pasta this though. Let's see. We did file name from path. String copy. Oh, we did not null terminate this one. Really? That's a bug. Okay. So really, this should be copied. That should be copied there. We should be explicit about that null terminator. All right. And then return 0. And again, this string library is something I've carried over a bunch of times too. And so it's kind of like we should probably update this to work a little bit differently. Okay. So we're doing a mid operation on dest. I don't know that I want to do that, actually. So what we actually need to do is get a substring of the source string between blah, blah, blah. Done by placing zeros in the string at relevant points. Well, I think it scoots the pointer forward to trim from the front end, and then from the end, it null terminates it by inserting a 0. So I think maybe instead of doing that, right, we have the start and the end here. We don't actually need to perform a string mid on this. What we really need to do is we'll go ahead and grab this. Actually, let's just grab this whole thing real quick. This is kind of a template for what we need to do. So the new length is actually going to wind up being Let's see. We should probably I32j equals 0. And I'm hoisting this up here so that we can actually have, I guess I could just j equals 0 here as well, just to be sure. And then plus plus j, right? And then by the time we get down here, we're eventually going to break on this, right? So the new length is actually going to be still j plus 1, so that's going to be correct. We're going to allocate something for that new length. Then we're going to null terminate destination j plus 1, right? Or no, it's going to be j minus 1. I guess we could say new length, right? Oops, that is not what I wanted. New length minus 1. Or actually, should it just be new length? I think it's actually new length, just in general. Okay. And then what we can do is string n copy, right? And in there, we can do, what is it? Destination, source, and max length. So destination is going to be dest, and then source is going to be path plus start. Yeah. And then length is just going to be length. Or new length, actually. New length. Right? So we don't need to do that anymore. We could just do that. I think that's correct. I'm probably going to have to write some unit tests around that just to make sure. But I can do that offline. All right. So we have all of that set up. I'm sure that's going to break some stuff. We should probably update our comment too, specifically to include this note. So we'll include this here and here, because now it dynamically allocates. Okay, so let's build. I am not surprised. K package C433. All right, so now all we actually need to do is we don't actually need to do the string duplicate anymore, right? Because that's just duplicating this guy so that we have a releasable string later on. Now we can actually just do this here, and then remove all of that. Wait a minute, what's base path? Not base path. All we need is path. Yeah. Okay. VFS also has one. So that's going to wind up being the same thing, pretty much, I think. Let's see, file name. Yeah, this is the only place it's actually used. Okay. So this one's a little bit more annoying. So this is going to be this, right? And then we create a name from that, and I'm going to have to release it. But that's not, again, a huge deal because we don't generally request direct from disk, except in very certain scenarios. So, okay. Oh, the K-asset importer. Okay, that's where we were before. Not surprised that that has errors. Okay, so this is going to be file name from path, and we just need to pass it the material file name sub I, right? That was kind of that whole rabbit hole that we went down. And then we can do, for output asset name, we can do kname creates mtl file name, right? This output package name is just going to be, we need a kname for that, but let's do that up here somewhere, I guess. Package name. We should probably call this like package. I hate it, but it's internal, so it's fine. So pkg name. We could just pass that directly, right? We create it once. We only want to hash the string once. And then the data. Let's see. So we import that based off of. Oh, we haven't actually read the file yet. Okay. So that's going to be the next step, right? So we'll take a temporary detour here. We'll say void, or actually it's going to be const character array data equals VFS request direct. Oh, nope, I can't use the VFS. I need to use file system read entire text file. And then that needs to be material file names sub I. Whole thing. So yeah, okay, that makes sense. So we get the file name from the path, right? This material file names array contains the entire path. I suppose this should probably be material file paths, right? Because that includes like the MTL. So we get just the file name, right? We use that as the asset name. And then we get the data from that file, and we pass that into the importer. Then we're going to also have to obviously clean up both of those. So MTL file name and data. So this right here is the process of importing a material file, right? Which is not a huge deal. I suppose I could just, write it twice because it's not exactly the same, right? When we handle this here, we want to do, I could still take this, but instead of material paths sub I, we just want path. And the same deal is here when we read the entire text file. And then we do the same thing, right? Now, I believe this returns a Boolean to indicate success or failure. So I suppose we could say, let's do a B8 MTL result, right? We'll save that off. Then after we do the string free, we'll say if not MTL result. In this case, we're going to k-warn material file import failed, see logs for details. And at that point, we'll move on. Now, if down here, we have the same problem. This is actually going to be, it's going to use success. Whoops. This is going to use success. Geez, I keep hitting the wrong keys. All right, so success here, we're using success here because this is a direct import of an MTL file, right? Whereas this is sort of a secondary thing. We can actually say, right, secondary import of materials. If these fail, should not count as a static mesh import failure, right? Whereas this definitely would count that way. So instead of a warning, we should probably actually do an error, and maybe we'll do path, right? We'll just do that. And then go to import from path cleanup, right? So this is another example of go to, right? Where we need, we have some cleanup that needs to be done somewhere, whether or not we have an error condition, right? So the overall flow here is that we attempt to perform an import of one of these file types. If we hit an error, like a hard error saying we can't, the import for this thing failed for one reason or another, we still need to perform some cleanup, right? Like the extension string that we get up here. We still need to clean this up. Obviously, only if we actually got the string, right? So if this string exists, we still need to clean it up. And there's likely going to be other data in here that's going to be the same thing. So in this case, we still want to perform this cleanup, right? So instead of doing, instead of returning false here, and then also doing this check here and here and every other thing that we're going to have in here, it's much better to just use goto, jump down to here, do the cleanup, and then return success. Now, success defaults to false. It only gets set to true if the code naturally goes all the way down here to just before our jump point, right? Or our label here. I say jump point because that's literally what this does. It's a jump under the hood. But anyways, so if we go to from here or here in an error condition, this will never be flipped to true, so it'll return false. Okay, that is it for OBJs and MTLs. Let's just build real quick, just as a... Okay, material serializer. Too many arguments in function call. Expected single argument path. Okay, this is that same thing that we just refactored, actually. So MTL serializer. We no longer do this, which is completely unsafe anyways. So we'll do text name buff equals this. And then we don't need that, right? Now, that is just a temporary buffer that we use here. And only there. Yeah, so let's do string free text name buff. I feel like there's another one here. Yep, here is another one. So text name buff equals that. Remove that out of here, and then text name buff. Okay, we create a k-name from it, and then it's not used anymore. So we can do string free text name buff. Okay, no more errors. And there, anyways, object serializer. So obj serializer. Probably the same thing. Did we not? Oh, you know what? I think I changed the interface of this, but I didn't. Yeah, I changed this, but I didn't actually update the importer to actually do that. Okay, so let's see. Deserialize outsource asset. Let's do I guess we could do. Yeah, I guess we could set it at the top. That's fine. Let's set it up here somewhere. So we'll do, I don't know, outsource asset material file count equals 0. Great. Okay. So what we'll do is here, when we go to save off the material file name, we have a to-do for verification in there. I don't know exactly what that meant at this point. So I think we have this. We extract the string. So let's do let's see. How do I want to do this? We probably need a D-array for this, annoyingly, because we don't know how many we're going to have. Right? So, whoops. So kind of similar to how we set up all of this other stuff. I guess let's just do... Let's get rid of material file name for one thing. And we'll do that up here. Material file names. No, just names. So this is going to be an array of strings, right? So material file names equals darray creates. The type of this is going to be that, right? And then down here, we're doing a scanf, so we need a temporary buffer to put this in. Probably this should probably be enough, right? So we'll do this, and then 512. Zero it out. Use buff here to put that into. And then we can do... Should we do the string duplicate? Think about how I want to do this. So I guess we could do... Ruche, thank you for the hi there. Hello. Let me think about how I want to do this. So I guess we could just push the string as is. So darray push. We're going to want to use material file names, and then we're going to do material, oops, I guess buff is actually what we want. Did I do that wrong? No, I don't think so. Excuse me. Array initializer must be a initializer list or string literal. What? What is this actually trying to do? Oh, right. Okay, so this actually should probably be that. Which this needs to be that. That's what it is. Okay. So we push into that array, right? And then all the way at the bottom, let's see, we could probably do this before we dedupe the geometry, right? Before the cleanup. So copy over material names. Out source asset material file count is going to be DRA length, and that's going to be material file names. And then we could actually just do a C or K copy type C array. We can do out source asset material file names as the destination. The source is going to be material file names, and then type is going to be constant character array, and then the number is going to be out source asset material file count. We also need to allocate the type C array for that, so that's going to be a const character array is going to be the type, and the count is going to be out source asset material file count, right? And then we can do DRA destroy material file names, so we don't leak that memory, right? So we have a dynamic array that we essentially just push into, and then we take a copy of all of that data and move it over here. And because we are doing a string duplicate, we don't have to worry about the life cycle of the actual strings themselves at this point. They will just be a part of, literally just the address of the pointer is going to be moved over or copied over. So we should be good on that front as well. Okay. Looks like we had some bugs around deduplication. I may need to look into that, but I'm not going to worry about it for now. Let's build. Okay. So we have actually succeeded a little bit. Multiple definition of STBI. How have we done? Where did we first import that then? It's complaining about STBI or STB image. Let's see. So I'm guessing. Did we include that more than once somewhere? We must have. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Let's see. How should renderer render all objects, and what should the rendering API look like? Boy, that's a loaded question, okay. I currently have something like this in game code. U32 ID equals entity creates. You know what? I might actually. I'm guessing this is probably not the entire thing, but I'm just going to copy this real quick. And pull up this. Okay. Okay, so you're saying your code looks like this. Pseudocode here. Okay, that's fine. Let's do. Okay, yeah, I think I'm missing part of it, but let me see if I can at least straighten out what you're asking me here. So you create an entity. You have something called make renderable, which I assume is some sort of like OOP, like I guess property or decoration that you can add or that you can compose onto an entity by its ID. Geometry get cube. Okay, so that gets your geometry. Shader get. Okay, so you're saying you want to take this entity and use this geometry and this shader to create a renderable. And in the renderer, for each shader and shaders, bind pipeline, update descriptors. For each entity and shader, get mesh entity, push constants, blah, blah, bind vertex buffer, draw mesh. Okay. This way can work. How do I put this? I probably wouldn't do it this way. I mean, like this stuff is fine, right? What I'm really thinking about is this part here. So I would not loop through your shaders and then loop through your entities by shader. What I would do instead, and what I actually do in my engine, is we have a whole bunch of meshes, right? Which we don't tie a mesh to a shader. We tie a mesh to geometry and a material. And then that material can optionally describe another, or optionally use another shader, rather. So what I do is I group like materials together. So meshes with like materials, I group those together. And then I can say, all right, now I want to, bind that particular shader and draw that list of meshes. And then I, go to the next group and do the same thing, and go to the next group and do the same thing. So I don't know if that's what you're doing in here. You kind of wind up with this, but kind of not. But yeah, if your renderer is actually looping through shaders, I don't know that I would do that. But it's kind of hard to tell without seeing like an entire code base, which I wouldn't have the time to review anyways, to be completely honest. But I mean, I don't see too much wrong with this, other than we've experimented with node systems and entities and stuff like that on this stream, and unless you're building something that's super complex, you probably don't need all of that, right? And actually, we're going to be stripping a lot of that stuff out because we tried some of it here on the stream, and we quickly started seeing some of the problems with that and trying to figure it out, right? And trying to pass data around. The way that I have kind of switched to thinking about this type of stuff, especially when it comes to entities, right, is to get rid of sort of this generic entity kind of idea. Because generally speaking, when you're making a game, you know the type of data that you're going to be dealing with. So, you can reason about the types of things that you're going to be looping through and rendering, right? You're going to have static meshes. You're going to have skyboxes. You're going to have skeletal meshes or whatever, right? And so generally speaking, when you start thinking about that, you're going to want to render all of those things. Those things are going to use like pipelines anyways. So really, you're going to want to iterate a list of meshes, a list of skyboxes if you have one-to-one. It's a bad example, but a list of, terrain blocks, a list of animated meshes, that kind of thing, right? You already know those things that you're going to be looping through. And so like storing it as part of an entity kind of fragments that stuff and puts it all over the place, which generally isn't needed. So I don't know. I mean, I would personally probably, and I'm hitting Vim shortcuts to try and highlight here. I would probably not go this way. I would think about when you go to render your scene, rendering the things in the order that your game expects them to be rendered in. Whatever that means for your particular game. And it generally tends to vary by project. Because the problem with a one-size-fits-all solution when you're getting super generic like this is that it tends to add a lot of overhead and a lot of extra code where you could have just dealt with the actual problem that you know that you have. I hope that makes sense. Have you tried WebGPU? Can it be used in AAA PC games? Well, Hoopa Unbounded, first off, welcome, first time chatter. So, I've not tried WebGPU directly. It's very metal-like, though. And thus, similar to DirectX and Vulkan in its own sort of way. However, it still requires going through JavaScript. JavaScript will never, ever, and cannot be fast as writing code in C or C++, right? Because JavaScript has all kinds of other things going on under the hood, right? So, can it be used in AAA PC games? I mean, I guess maybe, but like, why? Right? It's a browser thing, right? And most AAA big games are not made in the browser. And if they are, sometimes they're ported to it using Inscription or something like that. And so, like, I would say for something the scale of a AAA game, no, probably not. Can write WebGPU in any language. It's not browser only. Yeah, you'd have to define AAA better. I agree with that, right? Like, that means a lot of things. But generally, when I think AAA, I mean, I'm thinking large scope, right? So if you're talking just the browser, absolutely not. You can target WebGPU from like, using C++ or Inscription or something like that. But like, WebGPU is yeah, I don't know. I would not go that route personally. Yeah, Arvis brings a good point. So Minecraft, maybe Call of Duty, probably not. GTA 6, definitely not, right? It depends on the scope of the game you're making. Okay, so here's an example. If you're going to make something like Hearthstone, right? So the Blizzard trading card game, right? If you're going to make something like that, yeah, you could probably make that using WebGPU. But if you're going to make something like, Warcraft, like you'd probably want to use C++ and OpenGL and or Vulkan for that, right? So I hope that clarifies that a little bit. It's a little bit of a nebulous question, so it's kind of hard to answer. But generally speaking, for something like AAA, when I hear AAA, I think of large scale games, and that's generally not something that WebGPU can handle. In general, there's exceptions to everything, but yeah. All right, where were we? Oh, right, weird linking errors. Okay, so oh, yes. Okay. So these ones down here, I know what the problem is. However, all these STB ones, first defined here, did we somehow include... Did we somehow include that more than once? So in the importer image is where we're using this, right? So STB image implementation. If this is defined more than once somewhere, then absolutely we've got a problem, right? So actually, STB image implementation. Okay, so we do have it. Why do we have it in tools main? That would be why. That is a leftover from our old build system, which doesn't even use that anymore. I'm actually kind of surprised. Well, I guess it was bleating about this because we did have something in here that was using it. Okay. So I think We only want to have this implement or this defined in one file. Same with this. Maybe we just define these here. And not here. Let's see, tools, main.c. And if that ever changes, we'll have to fix it. Okay. KSet image imports, undefined reference to engine systems get. Okay. So that one doesn't surprise me either. Here we go. So here is the rub here. So this importer used to be part of the engine, or at least part of a plugin that was loaded by the engine. So we could do this engine systems get and pull up the VFS, or the virtual file system state. Since this has been externalized to a tool, we don't have access to that stuff anymore. Anything that is using the VFS now cannot do that. Point blank. So our logic in here for writing the binary is not going to work. We're going to actually have to switch that to using the raw file system, which is fine. The problem with that is the output asset name and the output package name now have to be defined in this importer, right? So we actually have to define like a string that contains those things, and the package name essentially becomes part of the actual path, right? So we're gonna have to change this again, actually, because I forgot about this. I didn't think about that. So let's think about this. So we need, what we really need, we have an output asset name. What we really need is an output asset path. Right? So we should be dealing with these importers. We should probably be dealing with paths, not packages or any of that stuff. Which means that our central import process is going to have to figure out what that path should be based on how we're importing it. And maybe that's something we just have to pass through the CLI when we get to that point, or from the editor or what have you, because those things should know this stuff at that point. Whatever is calling that should know it. So I guess what we really need here, instead of knames, is out file path. Yes and no. Technically, we don't need the full path, or we shouldn't take the full path. So, okay. So what we really need is we need something that's going to say, give us the directory on disk to write to, and the name of the file that needs to be written, but not the extension, right? So out file path is really a bit incorrect. And the reason we don't want the extension is because we want the importer to actually manage that. We want one source of truth as to what actually writes out the file extension for a given asset type, right? And so we want a single source of truth on that, so the importer ought to be responsible for that. So what we really need here is going to be output directory, output file name, right? So we can concatenate the output directory and the output file name. And then build a extension, or add an extension to that, and just format that all in one string. That is essentially what we're going to need. Annoyingly. Importer image. Oops, that's the... There we go. So that's going to be the replacement for this. Let's see. I don't think WebGPU has access to tessellation stages like domain and hull, so terrain and oceans, etc. require legacy methods. Yep, that's true too. I also wonder. I have not looked into this, so I legitimately don't know. I don't know if it has access to ray tracing either. I kind of doubt it, but. And I mean hardware ray tracing, right? Hardware accelerated ray tracing. That might be another thing. I don't know, actually. Maybe it does. I don't know. Play devil's advocate. Lots of things have been used for lots of things, so I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it'll be a challenge. Yeah, it depends on... So, okay. I would say there are limits. There's limits to everything, right? There is a limit. There's a boundary. So, if you're looking to make something like GTA 6... that ain't going to happen on WebGPU, period. Just not going to happen. You could try it all day long, but your draw distance is going to be very, 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 very small. And that's even if it supports everything you need it to, which it probably doesn't. Worst of all, you have to use WGSL. Yeah, there's that too. 100% agreed. The fact that they did not use SPUR-V for that really pisses me off. That was such a terrible decision. Let's see. Looping back to the other conversation, I meant that you register renderable entities to a specific mesh, material, shader, whatever, and you want to render all entities per shader. And you can have many render loops for different scenarios, not just one. I feel a renderer should render everything in a loop. So... I'm just digesting that for a second. Okay, so what I would say as far as the renderer goes is the renderer should basically be as thin as possible, typically. So the renderer basically should only really be just executing commands, right? So what I mean by that is bind a shader, draw... using this vertex buffer or index buffer using these offsets, right? It should not know anything about meshes or entities or any of that stuff. It literally should just be straight up commands that essentially become the underlying, web GPL or web GPU or WebGL or OpenGL or Vulkan or whatever it is that you're doing. The renderer should basically be as dumb as possible and as thin as possible. And it should not really maintain too much, if any, state. And it should just be, kind of told to be like, render these vertices within, this vertex buffer and use these indices, right? Bind to this texture. Use this shader. That kind of thing. It shouldn't know anything about, your sort of game types or your engine types, for example, not only meshes but billboards and things like that, right? It should just be generic but lightweight and dumb. Like it shouldn't know anything about materials, right? Like your renderer should know nothing about materials. So your material system should tell your renderer, hey, I have this set of uniforms, or I have this uniform buffer object, upload this to the GPU, and then be done with it, right? It shouldn't actually know that that's coming from material or care that it's coming from a material. Or bind, set this uniform, whatever, what have you. It should be as thin as possible. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so we need to actually change this one too. So we're actually going to change this one. I'm going to do this one as a proof of concept, this importer, and then we'll change the others to match if it works. So we have, wait, did I output directory, output file name? Yeah, okay, I did get it right. So let's get this. And come down here. And do that. Okay. And now we should just be able to pass output directory and output file name there. That'll solve that one. And now we can eliminate these VFS calls. So instead of the VFS, the virtual file system, which our importer is not going to know anything about, it is instead, let's see. Serialize and write to file. And this, we probably ought to do the path, right? So out path equals, and then we'll do a string format. And our format string is basically going to be path, right, or directory, file name, extension, right? So it'll be out directory, out file name, and then extension, which in this case is going to be KBI. KBI. Right? And I suppose we should probably like not use like a magic string here for this. I'll circle back to that in a second. What we really want is file system write. Oh, we don't have a file handle. Okay. We need to extend our file system. So we added stuff for reading, right? Most of our file system requires you to get a handle to a file first, and then you can read or write to that file, whatever you want to do, right? But then we also have these. We have read all bytes, read all text, and those take a file handle. But then there was also read entire text file and read entire binary file. So what I would really like is write equivalents of these, which these just forward to these guys. Whoops. They forward to these guys under the hood. So we would probably be doing the same thing for the write. It just knows about IDs of entities and their offsets and sizes in the vertex buffer and what shaders they belong. Okay, perfect. That already sounds good. For example, UBO buffer, it knows only size and keep it in raw array and access needed. One by ID of entity, the same as push constants. Okay, that's perfect then. You've already done most of the work then. Yeah, that's definitely the best way. I've written a lot of different renderers trying a lot of different things, and that is the best way. Because what you'll eventually find is you rarely have to touch your renderer after a while. And it's all the code around that changes, which is nice when you get to the point where you don't have to actually change your renderer anymore. Or at least, rarely. Oh, I did not export that one. Okay. So we need to write. So we should probably have a Boolean to indicate, a Boolean return to indicate success or failure. And we'll say file system write entire text file. And this is going to be constant character array file path, const character array content. Simple, right? And then we'll also have write binary file. And this one will have a void pointer to content, but it'll also have U64 size, right? So we know the size of that content. So we'll take these two and go to, it's been forever since I've actually touched the file system in this. But good thing is we're not actually doing anything crazy in here, so. All right. All right. So essentially, we need to essentially follow this pattern, right? So I need to get, we need to open this. We need file mode write. And I think that's binary. Yeah, so that's binary. So we want that, right? Return 0 should actually be return false. Okay, so we're gonna write not binary for this one and binary for this one. All right, so now that we have that open, we can do a file system write. I guess it would have to be just write. Should we do write line? No, because that's going to append a new line. Yeah, I guess we'll do this. So we'll do handle, which is going to be the address of f, which is the file handle. Data size. Okay, so we don't actually have data size, right? So what we're going to have to do is do EU64 data size equals string length. We want the length in bytes, not the UTF, and the 8 length. So it's going to be file path. And then we're going to do +1, right? So we're going to do, well, actually, let me think. Yeah, we do need a null terminator at the end of that. Yeah, that should work. Okay, so we want data size, and then data is going to be content, and then out bytes written. We don't really care about this, but we could use it for error checking, right? So we can pass the address of bytes written. Okay, so if this fails, failed to write, oops, forgot the quote, file. Let's actually spit out the function name here. C logs for details, and then we'll do function. And then we'll return false. We should probably, this is actually another candidate for goto here. All right, so let's do file system write entire text file, clean up. And we'll do success equals true right before that, right? And then after this, we can return success. But let's see. We need to do a file system close on the file handle, right? So here we can go to that in an error, right? So no matter what we need to do, or no matter what we do, we need to close the file handle when we're done with it, right? So we'll do a write on that, and then I guess what we could do, we could verify bytes written against the data size, right? So if, you know what though, I don't think I'm going to do that, and I'll tell you why. Because Windows, being Windows, when you actually write to the file system and you write a text file, there is going to be a mismatch in the size because of the line terminator. Windows uses carriage return and line feed versus every other operating system out there just uses line feed, right? So, or is it carriage return? Yeah, I think it's new line feed, right? So because of that, your string is just going to contain new lines, right? So just the \n that you would see. But when you write that to a file, all those \n's get converted to \r\n. So you technically, for each one of your lines, you have an additional character that actually gets written to the file. This bytes written will contain a count, including those characters. So if you try to compare it to data size here that just has new lines in it, it's going to be mismatched. Which is annoying, but is what it is. All right, I'm satisfied with that for now, otherwise. So let's go ahead and take, let's see. We don't need, screw it, I'm just going to grab all this and cut the parts I don't need. Okay, so we don't need data size, right? Data size is just going to be size, right? And then we have content being written. That's fine. Yeah, I think that's actually it. The only thing we need to do is actually change our label. So that needs to be binary file cleanup. That way we're not attempting to jump up here, which shouldn't work anyways because it's in a different function, but regardless. Okay. So if we didn't have this function, this is all the crap that we'd have to do every single time everywhere. That's annoying, right? There are places that we're going to want to do that, but if we're just writing an entire file out like we're going to do for assets all the time, this is more than enough to handle that. So let's go back, and we actually want to do this now. Right, so all we need is the file path and the content. So we have out path, and then let's see, the serialized block size. Oh, whoops. We should be using binary for this, not the text one. So it should literally just be block size and then serialized block. Yep, okay. And there we go. That is converted, right? So I'm thinking our other importers might actually have this as well. What else? What other VFS is still in here? Oh, yeah, there is still some stuff in here. Okay, there are some other ones. Right, we're just going to eliminate all the VFS references out of here. Let's see, request direct from disk. This now needs to be a file system. Read entire binary file. Right, so this has, let's see, the data is going to be bytes is equal to that. And then I think the only thing we have to have is a path and out size, right? So we could do use64 size equals 0, right? We can get rid of that, get rid of this, and then we'll do, what did I say? It was path and then out size, right? So get rid of all this, and then size, right? Why is it bleating about that? Oh, this returns constant, doesn't it? Yeah, that's why. Okay. We don't need that. So we just want to make sure that we have bytes. So that's a negative check on there. That's good. And then the import is just going to be size and bytes. And then we don't actually have to do this anymore. We can actually just do if bytes. I guess it's going to be size and bytes, right? Then we can do k free. Let's see, what would we have actually... How would we have allocated that from this? Memory tag array. Really? Why are we using a character array for this, actually? Now that I'm thinking about it. We should be... At a minimum, I would think just using... Well, I guess that's fine. It's not a huge deal, I guess. Let's see. May I ask, the latest updates of Kohi engine while you're developing Shadows of Illumina are uploaded to GitHub, but exclude the Shadows of Illumina related stuff? Yes, that is true. Yep. So the engine, all the engine changes are going to be open source and free. The game will not be open sourced until after it's released, for semi-obvious reasons. What I need to do, one of the things on my to-do list, and I'm waiting to do this until I actually figure out how the game should be set up, and some of these API issues and resolving some of this stuff, is I'm actually going to set up the testbed the same way that I've set the game project up here, so that you can clone that separately, and it's got sort of the same structure as what I'm dealing with here. But I just haven't gotten to that yet. Thank you for the follow over there on the Twitch side. Appreciate that. Welcome. All right. What did I say? What was I looking at? I forget. Oh, the allocation of this was memory tag array. Okay. Let's see. So I was going to say here, k free. And the block that I want to free is going to be bytes, and the size is going to be size, and then memory tag array. And bytes is going to have to be, why is that? Oh, because it's const. Okay. Well, that's kind of annoying, but I get it. All right. That should cover us. That should cover us on that one. Okay. So that means I should be able to now... What is still using the VFS in here? Interesting. Nothing, as far as I can tell. I need to convert some of these, however. Core render types. These are actually all in the core Kohi libraries, so they should be all like that. External. Okay. And I'm actually thinking one of the bitmap font import engine systems. Yeah, okay. So all of all of our importers are going to have the same issue because we can't use the VFS. So I'm probably going to fix that offline. Just because I'm actually getting a little tired, and the stream's already run much later than I normally do run. But yeah, I'm actually becoming a little bit brain dead, so I think I might end the stream here soon. Let's see. Let me catch up on chat first, though. First time chatter Delta 1x1x. Welcome. Hey, I'm only a comp sci sophomore, so I'm not very familiar with a lot of IDEs, text editors, especially with Linux. Wondering which one you're using. Yeah, Diamond linked it there. I'm using NeoVim. And what he linked you is an article that I wrote up on my website about all of the plugins and setup that I'm using. However, NeoVim does have, or thus Vim also does have quite a steep learning curve. I do suggest that folks learn it generally, but if you're also trying to learn programming at the same time, I would say what's your brain capacity to take on something like that, right? I like this editor because it's what's called a modal editor, so it's not like most editors like this where you just kind of click and start typing and you have stuff, right? There's these different modes called insert or normal mode where you can actually execute commands, and it basically requires you to almost never have to touch the mouse. Now, on stream here, I do touch the mouse to highlight things because that's a little bit easier and quicker to do while I'm trying to visually explain the code. But generally speaking, this editor is terminal based, and it keeps you from having to touch the mouse so often, which is kind of awesome. But do note that if you start using NeoVim, you should probably learn how to use it without any plugins or whatever first. Learn the basics, and then check out the link that Diamond gave you there. But yeah, it's it comes with a steep learning curve. I'm not going to lie. Heard of it a lot. It seems quite complex with all the binds, but since my two current classes have only ever used Java, next semester I start C. Might check it out, but also thinking C Lion from JetBrains. Yeah, C Lion's a pretty good one. Yeah. Yeah, that's probably a decent one, especially if you're doing Java stuff. Yeah. A lot of people use this one too. But yeah. I would suggest once you get a little bit further down the road, especially if you're going to be doing C stuff, look into this at some point. But I wouldn't start off here if you're just learning to code, because this does require quite a bit of knowledge to get this up and running correctly and maintenance and all that stuff. It's not for the faint of heart, for sure. I prefer it, but that's because I've been using it for years and have learned it. So take that as you will. Okay, let's see, bitmap font. Yeah, so basically our bitmap font importer, our obj importer, our static mesh importer, and our audio importer are all using the VFS, and they shouldn't be. So yeah, I am going to end here, I think, because I'm not gonna be able to get through that all tonight. There's no way. Let's see. Do you have a custom image format for the engine, or are you using PNG bitmap? I do have a custom format for it, actually. Yeah, we actually made one, which supports all this stuff. The format supports it. The engine doesn't necessarily yet. But yeah, we do have our own custom format that we use. So the runtime only has to understand one format of stuff. It doesn't actually have to, worry about decoding images and all that stuff. So I made that decision. I technically made the decision to do that early, but it was kind of late until I actually got that implemented. But yeah. Okay. So let me see who we can raid. Let's see. You have to pardon my sniffles. I think my allergies are getting me for some reason. Let's see. I want to take a look and see who all is doing stuff. similar to what we're doing here. If anyone, I don't know. Um, do, 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 do. Wow, there's like no C programmers on. Interesting. Okay, so we're gonna go with something that's a little, like, I guess loosely related, right? And then we'll go from there. Um, let's go with, let me see. Okay. We are going to raid Hypnotic Games. So he's a pretty cool dude. I'm not sure what he's up to tonight, but we'll have to ask him what he's up to. Looks like he's doing something for charity, so I'll have to ask about that. All right. Is it uncompressed? Yes, for now it is uncompressed, but it does have switches in there for compression. We just don't have it implemented yet. But eventually it'll be, it'll support compressed formats as well. Let's see. How to structure a multi-backend renderer. I don't know if I can actually describe that in the RAID countdown. But basically, we have the 30-second or less version of it is we have a renderer front end that is sort of the render or the graphics API agnostic version of that. That's the section of code that the rest of the engine understands and deals with, and it's completely agnostic of whether you're using Vulkan, OpenGL, DirectX, whatever. And then we have a renderer backend, which is where all the Vulkan code lives, or the Metal, or DirectX, or whatever. And so that separation is the first way. So we can then have multiple renderer backends that sort of implement that front end interface, and that's kind of the way it works. If you come back on the next stream, I will answer that. But yeah, I will see you guys later. That's it for the stream. See ya.